Hello, and welcome to another live coding episode of Roots of Aereal. And today I'm going to continue on with creating the island interface. So up until now we've done a lot of work on the battle interface because that's like the main thing of the game, the battling. But of course, the story of the game is that the hero goes from island to island to get all of the runes of Aereal. And of course, in order to do so, in order to find those runes, he has to go by the island. He goes around the island to do missions, to do tasks, whatever you may call it. Here inside the code I've called them missions. Now this island here, this it's called Astilan. It's just one island I created in a software called WonderDraft. I will show you in other videos how I create these islands here. But they all have one thing in common. They are governed by the same event sheet. And that event sheet is this event sheet called generic island. So it's divided into quite some functions and interaction already, and we're going to expand on that today. So if I go back here, you'll see that this island consists out of a number of points. You see these points here. These points are actually points on the map, and these points are called mission points. You see it's object type mission points. And there's also these kind of points, which is a city point. There's two kind of points. Now a city point, of course, grants the ability to go into a city. And a city, of course, is another kind of map. Like this one, for example. Let me go and zoom out here and see. Oh, remove that one. You can see this is the city of G-Wood, for example, where also the city has a number of points here and there, and all of those points have the same attributes. In that sense, that all of those points, let me close this one up again and go in here, as these points inherit from map points, and map points is like a family. Map points. Let's go into map points, and you can see that there's both city points and mission points here in the map points. And map points essentially right now have a number of instance variables. They also have a sign behavior, and they also have two effects assigned to them. So in short, the current instance variable is set to 1 or set to 0. If it is set to 1, then this current position is this map point here is the position of the player at that time. It keeps track of that. And in order to facilitate the movement from one point to another, there are up to four different instance variables called jump to here from 1, 2, 3, and 4. And you'll see that the jump to this specific mission point or map point is can be done from the map point with unique identifier 520 or the map point with unique identifier 519, and most likely this is this one here, 519 and 520. You can see that. So I've configured all of these map points on this map. So it essentially tells me, okay, whenever I'm here, I can jump to either there or there. So I've also made sure that nowhere on the map there are more than 4 roads leading up to that map point. So usually there are 2, like here, and here, and here, and here. But sometimes there are 3, like here. And sometimes there are 4, like here, for example. And here you'll see that all of the 4 jump to here from variables are implemented really. So good. That's the first thing. And then we have a variable called allow click, and obviously that is to denote if clicking is allowed, for example. And then there is the probability table, and I'll come back to that in detail in just a moment. So when we go to the event sheet, and in the general here, we can see on every tick what happens. So we pick all of the map points, and we tell it we don't allow clicks right here. If it is the current map point, then we enable the effect active, and we disable the effect called highlight. These are these two effects. So highlight is green, active is this teal kind of color. If it's not the current one, these are both disabled. So, and then we pick the map point with current equals to 1, and we also retain that in a variable called current map point. This is a local variable. And then we go and see that for all of these map points, and this is a large expression that says, okay, pick by evaluate, pick all of the map points that are applicable for this expression. So all of the map points where the jump to here from equals the current map point. So we actually just select every map point, we pick every map point that can be a destination from the current map point. And for all of these map points, we allow the click, we disable the active highlight, and we enable the active active effect rather, and we enable the highlighting. And we also we set the sign enabled, and here we set the sign disabled. So that's how it works, and let me show you what it looks like in real life. You can see that this one is set to current right now. So this is this bluish color. And these two ones are the active ones. So they can be clicked upon. I can click them. Right now it doesn't do anything, because that's exactly what I'm going to implement, of course. But you'll see that you're not able to click these ones here because they cannot be reached from the current point. So in general, that's how this works, the movement between the map points. So in essence, what happens is whenever we click this map point, we see we don't have an understanding yet of what is going to happen when we click that. So what's going to happen, a bunch of things can happen, actually. It could be that we move into a city, it could be that we do a battle, it could be that we upgrade a card, it could be that we upgrade a character, etc. Those are all actions that can be performed from one of those map points, actually. And usually the player will be presented with one or more options what he can do at that specific point. But with the exception of some cases, we really don't want it to be fixed. We don't want that the player, whenever he plays the island Aereal, is presented with the same options on and on every time he plays the game. That needs to be some kind of randomized. So in essence, what I've done is I've created like a data structure. A data structure that really says what are the possibilities when you go to a certain map point. And for those possibilities, you can pick one. And in one of those possibilities, there are a number of options. Now, the possibilities are structured in something called mission types. And the possibilities you have in those mission types are called actions. So in order to do so, in order to expand on this rather, I have created in the data folder here a number of JSON files. So we have the mission types, we have the mission type strings, we have the action strings. These are all things that can be used to configure or to randomize all of these things here. And these JSON files are represented again by these JSON files, which I've included in the project under the Files folder. So in essence, I'm going to look at these different files. The mission types, never mind the mission JSON, it's something older that I've used to get to this point, but it will be deprecated and replaced by what I'm going to tell you now. So we've got the mission types, we've got the mission type strings, and we've got the action strings. The most important one here is the mission types JSON, and it looks like this. So here you can see that it's a pretty simple JSON, which tells us that continue contains an array called continue. Passage cost contains an array with one item called passage cost, but some have multiple, like upgrade query has upgrade character, upgrade card, and continue. And what we see here is the first item here is the mission type. And the mission type has several options, several actions attached to it. So there is a mission type called continue and an action called continue. A passage cost mission type and a passage cost action. And sometimes there are multiple, like here for the gamble mission type, we have the gamble action and the continue action. So this actually maps what a mission type can have as an option. But these, of course, are string literals. Those are constants that I can use in the game to identify which point has which mission type. These actions also are constants in the game that can determine what kind of action has to be done. But of course, when we display the interface, it would be very stupid to just tell the player, okay, city cost force. The player doesn't want to see that. It wants to see like some lore or some an interface or a text that's made up and that tells it, okay, you need to go into the city and pay a cost. So that's what this does actually. And then you can see that it's telling the action city cost, which also needs to have some string, some description linked to it. Now the descriptions of both the mission types and the descriptions of the actions, what the player gets to see in the interface essentially, is also subject to configuration. And those are the mission type strings and the action strings. Let's start with the mission type strings. So the mission type strings here, you can see that the continue mission type has nothing to see here, or there is nothing in this place, or this place seems to be deserted. There can be a X number of mission types strings for each mission type. So now to continue my coding, of course, I have added a single one for each of them. But in the future, I will be able to add more of those different strings. For example, instead of move into the shop, you can also type, for example, do you want to shop for items, for example. And you can add as many as you want and be creative in what you want to present the user whenever he encounters a map point that has the mission type called shop. The same thing applies here for actions. So actions, whenever we encounter a continue mission type, we will have sorry about that. Whenever we have a continue mission type, there is one option called continue, and this continue option here is also presented in the upgrade query, for example, or in the upgrade card query here, where you get actions called continue. And for those actions, we also have strings. So whenever you have a continue action, there is a possibility that the interface shows either be on your way, just move on, continue your path, etc. You can also add different things here. So in order to continue development, I've added different strings here for the different action types. Now these different configurations are actually loaded into memory in the save and load event sheet. And here we have the asynchronous function load configuration that will read the mission types, read the action strings, and read the mission type strings in order to load it and to be used in primarily here this generic island event sheet. So how is this used? Well, actually, when we randomize, we want to randomize what happens in these different points here. So how do we go about that? Actually, what we see here on the screen is that some points must have different options than other points. For example, when we are on this item here and we go to this mission point, we should not be presented with an option to go into the city because it's not a city. On the contrary, here, when we click a city, we don't want an option to go in, to go gamble, for example, because that's not something you can do here when clicking on a city. There's already the option to continue or to go into the city or to pay a cost and go into the city and stuff like that. So this is another kind of mission point where the options for the player need to be limited to certain mission types. In order to do that, I've added an instance variable to the map points family. And as you remember, both the city points and the mission type, the mission points, are part of this map points family. And what I've added here is an instance variable called probability table. The probability table for all of these here, this regular mission points, is mission type map. The probability table for this one here is mission type city entry. And for the first one here at the bottom, it's mission type continue false. And how does this play out? Well, you have this AI event sheet. And there you can see that I've created a number of constants. One constant for every possible mission type right now. So there are quite a lot. And also a constant for every possible mission action. And these are actually used if we go down to the bottom of the function. It's a function called create probability tables. And what we do in this create probability tables here is create a probability table called mission type map. And as you recall, this is the probability table for the regular points here. And we add the mission type continue, battle choice, battle force, passage cost, etc. We all add it to this mission type map. For now, it's all with weight 1, but of course in the future I'll be adding some logic or some weights that, for example, we are more likely to do a battle, for example, than to obtain a collectible, for example. This should be much rarer than battling. And the mission type city is something else, because in a city we want to go to the shop, we want to gamble, we want to go crafting, etc. But that is inside the city. When we click the city entry, and if you recall, the city entry is this probability table here for every city in the map. And then we have the choice, a force, a cost, etc. Type continue force is only with continue, battle force is only with battle. So depending on the map point, I can configure on the generic island, actually. Here, for example, on the island Astelan, but whatever island I'm going to create in the future, for each point I can say, okay, you adhere to this specific probability table, which means that whenever the mission types are generated for every map point, because that's what we're going to do, we're going to generate a mission point for every mission for every map point here on the map, you need to pick one of the entries in this probability table. That's what happens. So this is the data structure behind that. So that's it for part 1 of this live coding session. It was pretty much an explanation of what is already in the game. And the next part we're going to continue on with our quest to make this more variable, more random actually, and to generate all of these map points and have this reflected inside the game while we are playing the game. Alright, thank you for watching. As always, please like, please subscribe. And if you want to source code for the entire game here, please support me on my Patreon site. The link is in the description.